First of all, I'm going to show you, I'm going to tell you what's in my bowl here, in my mixer bowl. I'm using my KitchenAid today. I have 1 stick of unsalted butter, which is a ½ cup, and I also have 1½ cups of granulated sugar. We're going to go ahead and start mixing this. I've already kind of started mixing it on low speed. You want to start it on low speed. You don't want the sugar or anything to come out of the bowl. But at this point, I'm going to go ahead and bring it up to medium speed. Now this process is really important. Every time you're going to bake a cake and you're starting with mixing or combining the sugar with the butter first, you really want to make sure that this is combined thoroughly. So you can use a mixer like this one, and so it's going to take about a good 5 or 6 minutes for this to happen. Your butter has to be at room temperature. Very important. So once you do this, you can do this in the KitchenAid mixer. If you have a handheld mixer, you can also use it. It's just going to take longer because it's got less power. So it's probably going to take about maybe 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes to get to the consistency that you want. You can also do this by hand. I mean, why not? If you don't have a mixer, just use one of these spatulas or even a big spoon, and just kind of really, make sure you mix in all the butter and the sugar together. Make sure it's completely combined. You don't want to see any granules of the sugar not combined in the butter, because then it's, the consistency of your cake or of your cupcake is not going to be nice and moist and delicious how it's supposed to be. So we're mixing this right now. So in the meantime that this is happening, I'm going to show you what other ingredients we're going to need. And this is going to be at the bottom of this video. You can click on the box where it says show more, and you're going to be able to see the recipe, the full recipe. All right. So the wet ingredients that we're going to need for this batter is going to be 1 cup of buttermilk, 2 large eggs, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Those are the wet ingredients that we're going to need. And also, of course, last but not least, is your red food coloring. You can't make red velvet cupcakes without red food coloring. So you're going to need 2 tablespoons of this red food coloring, which is usually this whole thing. Maybe a little bit, there's going to be a little bit left over. So really important. So those are the wet ingredients. The dry ingredients that you're going to need are going to be 2½ cups of all-purpose flour, and I have it in this bowl right here. And actually, I have sifted the dry ingredients, which is really important also. You have 2½ cups of all-purpose flour. You have 2 tablespoons of unsweetened cocoa powder. I use the Hershey's brand. That is the best one that you can find out at any of the stores. So 2 tablespoons of the unsweetened cocoa powder and a ½ teaspoon of salt. So that's what's in this bowl right here. And I have used my sifter and I've sifted it. Really important. Always sift your dry ingredients when baking because you don't want any lumps or chunks of things in there. So that's what I've done there. Now, the other 2 ingredients that you're going to need are going to be 1 teaspoon of white vinegar and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. I'm sorry, I apologize. Baking soda. So 1 teaspoon of white vinegar and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Okay, that you're going to leave to the end. We're not going to use this now, all right? Because there's going to be a chemical reaction that's got to happen at a certain point when we're mixing this that is going to just make a big difference in this batter, all right? So let me show you what my butter looks like now that it's been creaming here for a few minutes. I'm going to stop the mixer. And at some point, you're going to want to scrape your mixer. Show you what the butter looks like. And then you take the paddle attachment, and you're using the paddle attachment, okay, to do this. And I'll show you. Let's see if I can bring it up to the camera. This is what your butter and sugar are going to look like once you have mixed it to the stage that you needed to mix, okay? So as you can see, it's like a paste. Pretty much, but it's all together. There's no loose pieces of butter. There's no loose pieces of sugar. Okay, so we're going to scrape it down a little bit. I'm going to put it back on the mixer here. And You can go ahead and leave it on low for a little bit. Okay, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna use another mixing bowl and we're gonna put in all of our wet ingredients. In this case, it's gonna be the buttermilk that we talked about, the 2 eggs, and the vanilla. Now, let me tell you about buttermilk. Usually, if you're not baking, you don't bake all the time, you're not gonna have, chances are you're not gonna have buttermilk in your refrigerator. But you can purchase it if you know that you're gonna bake a couple of things that use buttermilk. What buttermilk does is it has this, the acidity in it makes everything just break down and become very, very moist. So it's really, really important. If the recipe called for buttermilk, you wanna use buttermilk. It's not the same as just using milk. Now, if you don't have buttermilk at home because you just don't buy it and you want to make a batch of these, don't worry. You can make your own buttermilk. Very, very easy. You need 1 cup of whole milk. It has to be whole milk. It has to be full fat. 1 cup. And then you're going to put in there 1 tablespoon of either lemon juice or 1 tablespoon of white vinegar. You're going to let it sit for a little while. And you're going to see that it's going to become kind of chunky looking, almost like yogurt. There is buttermilk. So see, that's how simple it is, okay? So there's a quick tip. So let's go ahead and just with my whisk here, I'm just using a whisk. I'm going to whisk the eggs a little bit into this buttermilk and the vanilla, just to break the eggs up a little bit so that we have them all together. All right, there we go. And my sugar and my butter are working. You're not gonna, it's not gonna go bad because you leave it in here. It's actually gotten even creamier. I'll show it to you again. This is where you want to be. There you go. That's the stage you want to be at. Okay, so it took us about 6 minutes. A little bit over 6 minutes. Okay, so now what we're going to do, and no, I have not forgotten that I have my red food coloring here, but we're not going to, what we're going to do is we're going to add the red food coloring directly to my wet batter, or to my wet ingredients. So I'm going to need 2 tablespoons, like I said, of this red food coloring. Now, red food coloring, it's really just for the color. It's not adding any taste. It's not adding any texture. But, of course, red velvet cupcakes wouldn't be the same without the red food coloring. And I've seen people make blue, use blue food coloring, orange, all kinds of colors, green. But the original is red. Okay, this is very, very red, so you want to be careful not to get this all over your hands. Just do it inside the bowl. And if you get a little bit of extra food coloring in there, that's fine. It'll just be that much redder. Okay, this is looking very nice. And we can mix this a little bit just so that you can see how the red looks. Ooh. So I will show you what happened with this red. It's really pretty. I like it this way. See? Almost looks like blood, but it's not. So we're going to start by adding the dry ingredients. So we're going to alternate. We're going to start with the dry, put some dry into my butter and sugar, and we're going to put some of the liquid, and we're going to do it like that, back and forth, okay? So I'm going to start out with maybe about 1 cup of the dry ingredients. Turn the mixer on low, you don't want to over mix. And then you're going to add a little bit of the mixture. do is I turn off my mixer in between. I don't like to let the mixer run because I think you just overwork the dough or overwork the flour, and then too much gluten develops, and then you end up with a tough cake, and you don't want tough cakes. So I'm going to add another cup of the dry ingredients. Turn the mixer to low. And going with my wet batter. Alright, start to mix a little bit. And so we're going to add the last batch of the dry ingredients. Again, and at this time we're going to add the rest of our wet ingredients. Ooh, and I can smell the cocoa powder in here. Yummy. Add a little bit of liquid, just go ahead and scrape it. Okay. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to just bring it up to a little bit of a medium speed. We want all this nicely combined. So now I can do this. I can bring it to a higher speed because I didn't overwork the dough. Okay. All right. Stop the mixer. We don't want to overmix it. Show you in a minute here what this looks like. If you have a couple of bits and pieces that didn't get incorporated because they stayed on the paddle, that's fine. Okay. Now you always want to make sure that it's completely mixed. So you're gonna use your spatula and just go into your bowl. And just kind of fold it in, okay? Let me see if I can show you what the batter's looking like. All right, so as you can see, it's mighty red. It's very red. Okay, so being that we have mixed our batter, and it's completely red, 100% red, what we're going to do now is we're going to mix the 1 teaspoon of vinegar with the 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Okay, so we're just going to put the baking soda into the vinegar, and it's going to make this, it's going to fizz. Okay, and you're going to add it to your batter. Okay, and then with your spatula, you're not going to put it back in the mixer. With your spatula, you're just going to mix it in. And there's some kind of chemical reaction that really works with this cake, and it just makes it lighter, fluffier, nice and moist. Okay, so all mixed in. And now what you want to do is you want to get your cupcake tin or your cupcake liners. These should be all ready to go. Okay, and just like I've showed you before, I would put it, this batter is a little bit thicker, so you can use one of these and put it in there to make it easier to pour in, or you can just go ahead and get like a big spoon, which is what I do. And you always want to fill these up about 3/4 of the way. Okay, you don't want to overfill them, overfill them. You don't want them that high, but you do want them to come up a little bit over the paper. Okay? So I'm just going to fill all these